John Rhodes back with us, also known as the Crypto Hunter.
Basically, we're talking about a unknown life form on Earth that has a humanoid appearance to it, and it is ranging about 7 to 8 feet in height. It has 2 arms and 2 legs like a human being, hands that have 3 fingers with an opposable thumb and claws. Their skin is made with scales instead of skin like we have. And there's larger scales in its chest and some flat areas and smaller scales on their face and neck and more inflexible areas. They've been seen to have large almond-shaped eyes, lipless mouths, no ears, and definitely have all this reptilian muscular physiology to them. And these are based all on reports coming in and also what we've seen scientifically that could develop on Earth.
Are they hybrids, John? Do they have part human blood in them?
I'm not sure that they're hybrids. I would think that what we're talking about is a separate species that is living side by side with us in a parallel world underneath our feet, and that they have been there for a long time, probably longer than we have been intelligent animals or beings on the surface. And we're perceiving them as being extraterrestrials when they may be products of our own terrestrial biology. This would certainly answer the argument that, parts from crashed disks or craft have no unknown materials in them. Well, they wouldn't be unknown if they're actually making things out of materials and composites from things that they find here on Earth as resource.
And what kind of technology might they possess, John?
Well, it has been said that a technology of a high degree, such a high degree as they might have, would be indistinguishable from magic, I believe it has been said. So we're talking about the ability to travel instantaneously without the effects of inertia hurting us, or being able to stop craft at a 90-degree angle and turn. We're talking about technologies in flight systems like that. We can only imagine what they have actually got on a cultural level to help them from day-to-day life, and what kind of technologies we might have that they could have of ours. I would imagine they would probably, along the line, be scooping up technology of ours, just like our scientists or military types might be going to their habitats and taking technology of theirs.
John, you truly are the expert in these reptilians. What got you down this path in the first place?
First of all, I had an interest in cryptozoology, which is applying the scientific method to looking for species that we have not yet cataloged or recognized scientifically. Right. And we've only discovered about 15% of life on Earth. So that leaves a very large amount of animals that could be existing out there we haven't seen yet. And not all of them are going to be the small insects. Some of them are going to be large bipeds or quadrupeds that we haven't seen yet that we're going to uncover. And I was just for a lark over in Las Vegas going to a UFO community meeting. And when I started hearing people talk about their contacts, I kept hearing one or two individuals talking off to the side about seeing something that had a reptilian physiology to it. And that kind of grabbed my interest. And going back and talking to people in different groups, I started finding out that this was something that was emerging in the UFO scene. I then saw an interview with the Roswell mortician, Glenn Dennis, and he said in an interview that he showed a picture of a hand, and he said this is what the nurse drew of the being's hand that they had taken out of the craft in Roswell, and what it looked like was 3 fingers with an opposable thumb with small circles on it. And I said, isn't that interesting? Because I think arboreal lizards here on Earth have small circular pads on their fingertips, and it grabs, and on a microscopic scale, these things act like suction pads. They grab onto leaves and things to help them move about. Well, that's very terrestrial. And then Dale Russell, he also was a paleontologist who for NASA had said, "Hey, listen, what is it that NASA wanted to know what extraterrestrial life could look like?" And he took a model of Troodon, which is a dinosaur 65 million years ago, and it was a theropod dinosaur. And he says, based on the advances, this was bipedal. It had an opposable thumb. Its eyes started coming from the side of its head towards the center, which allowed it stereoscopic vision. It gave it a better hunting skills, and it had a very large brain case. He said, if this had not died out with the massive devastation 65 million years ago, projections on its morphological changes over time place it looking like a human form. And this struck me. It struck me hard because it made me realize that something like this was at one time possible. But then I started thinking, well, if the birds evolved from dinosaurs and they survived, then what possibly other things could have survived as well? And when you look at birds recognized as dinosaurs in the past, we recognize them as being mammalian birds, avians. And some of these avians have the ability to mimic human speech. So we're getting real close to seeing some sort of parallels in that. And for me, that was striking. Not saying I'm not excluding any other possibilities like an extraterrestrial contact or even that some beings flipped off into the dimension we call the plasma dimension or the death or another place to go through some sort of devastation. But it seems to be the most reasonable and down-to-earth answer that we have at our fingertips right now.
Why does it seem, John, that they seem to be so vague, so distant from us?
Only because, first of all, we have a preconditioned reaction through Western traditions especially to have a fear of the snake. We also inherit this fear through our DNA that has been impressed upon us not to approach anything with scales because a long time ago, the small little mammals that humans once were often on the dinner plate for reptiles.
Yeah.
And so therefore, that just like an animal knows not to eat certain fruit or things on a vine without having to tell it, because it instinctually knows what it's looking at is poison. So that kind of information does get in us on a DNA level and affects us, even through an intuition type of a thing.
Speculate, if you would, on the members, how many there might be.
Population sizes is undeterminable. It's not. We're just surprised to recognize they live at all. We don't know how many exist. It could be, several thousand to several 100,000. It could be up to 1 million in different areas of the planet, but we just don't know. I believe that our authorities are just placing us in the dark as probably the reptilian humanoids. If they have a culture hidden underground here, their own authorities would probably talk about surface animals or say that there's a vacuum out there and that nothing exists on the surface. I believe that we're intentionally being kept secret by authorities on both sides.
John, what makes you think that they are earthbound and not extraterrestrial?
I believe that they're earthbound only because we have so much supporting evidence pointing in that direction that outweighs, the extraterrestrial hypothesis. Mm-hmm. I believe, like other scientists do, that there's a possibility that whatever happened to our primordial soup here on our planet may have also happened to other planets along the way, and that life itself took up at different stages, and the same ingredients for that soup were also deposited on different planets. So it could be that given if it had the same ecological niche as we do, the stresses on their morphological changes over time would make them probably still achieve the reptilian form, but in different variations. So they could also be extraterrestrial. I believe, however, the thing that we may be looking at in our future is potentially the return of the ancestors of some of the descendants that are reptilian humanoid who may have left Earth to travel space and they may be coming back at some time. And this is where you put together some of the ancient myths and stories. You look about what's happening here on Earth now, and it does tend to lead in that direction. Some people theorize the Earth itself is being used as a staging ground for a great spiritual battle that's associated also with the physical one. So, at any time whatsoever, the world could get more out of control than we even see it now.
John, in your opinion, are they peaceful or are they not?
I think they're like us. I think they can be peaceful, but when called to it, they could probably be just as
evil,
violent as human beings can get. I don't think that just because a species looks a certain way that it's got to be evil. I think that evil lives in the heart of all creatures, and so does great goodness. It's a matter of which one that creature is predisposed to, fall in line with.
Do they have yellow eyes? What colored eyes do they have?
Various colors. We hear of yellow like the flames of a candle that are seen reflecting. Strangely enough, I think even in the Bible they talk about Jesus as having eyes of a flame, and so it appears like a vertical slit. Now, this might be trickery of the light, but I am unsure of it. They have lidless eyes. They don't really have lids, but they haven't. Some of them have been seen with an interior lid that is kind of like almost like a sunglass lens that can come down over the surface of their eye. And I'm not sure if this is to protect them from being in overly bright environments because they are primarily underground and in subdued light, or if it's for other types of protection of their eyes. I just don't know.
Where are they primarily spotted?
We've been able to determine a pattern of entry into a person's home. It's usually through a closet. It has been through a child's bedroom closet.
Jeez.
And so when they appear, it's easily written off through our own fairy tale imaginations that the monster lives in the closet. So it's easy for parents and stuff to say, don't worry about it, nothing's in there, go to sleep. And it's unbelievable, when it's coming out of a child's room. They have also appeared just out of nowhere, seemingly, as a person is waking up in their bed. This is most shocking because we tend to think that our bedrooms are our inner sanctuary and that nothing should be there. And so it must be quite startling to wake up and see something that, you've been told looks like the devil just sitting there looking at you.
How do they get there? Are they coming through portals, other dimensions?
I think that they've developed some sort of the reports we've seen that say that when they see them move through solid objects, like walking through a wall or a door, and when they've been seen to be semi-transparent, it's due to them reaching down and touching something like on a utility belt that they have around their waist. So there must be something that they're doing in order to make their atoms and their molecules of their flesh and their uniforms and everything start vibrating at such a rate that it falls out of our visual fields and it appears to disappear.
Do they have supernatural abilities, John?
This is the interesting thing because we're talking about beings that may be physical and living here on our planet. They may be physical and living on other planets. But there is this idea that some sort of massive devastation happened eons ago, and a lost civilization of these beings was suddenly killed off. So many of them were thrown into the dimension we call the afterlife that they've been struggling to get back, but they've adapted to that life over there. And today we call these beings the jinn because they're living in a plasma field and they can interact with electronics and have power over electronics. So it seems like they are on that fourth state of density, which is plasma, which is where we all go when we die. We don't really lose our consciousness. Our atoms and our molecules just fall away. But our spirit and our sense of being a person continues. So they do have spiritual abilities. It's a matter of what they're interacting with and what their goals are.
Many myths throughout history have mentioned these kinds of reptilian beings, haven't they?
Yes, they have. And there's quite a few of them. I mean, so many that it's impossible to kind of list them all. And they come from all corners of the earth. You know, some of these stories may be descriptions of actual beings, but most appear to be to present a message of some sort of importance with the reptilian image, so it can psychologically provoke the human reptilian brain in you to activate and initiate some sort of a spiritual or transformational event. Fairy tales kind of do the same thing for children by adding a dragon to the list of characters in them. And for the adults, of course, we have to look just as far as Genesis and the Bible to see or hear about a reptilian humanoid form walking with Adam and Eve upright in the garden and speaking to them. There's not too many creatures that are able to do that. But these stories, they hold veiled truths in them. And it's just a matter of finding out what kind of truth could be there versus how much of it is creative use. Because in ancient times, the reptilian form was seen more of something that was an emblem or a symbol of something benevolent or good or powerful and strong. It's only in modern times, more or less, we've attached these negative connotations to it. It's just the same way that the pagans didn't think there was a thing called hell or the devil until some of us came along and made it up. And then all of a sudden, the dimensions of thought change because we introduced something that wasn't there before. But the presence of these beings on our planet have certainly influenced us in so many ways, spiritual ways as well as being used as a controlling factor, a fear factor, as it were, because our ancient brain and our own brain was inherited by the ancient ancestors, which were also reptiles. And as Paul MacLean was a neuroanatomist, and during the 1960s, he coined the term the reptilian brain because it was such a part of our controlling. It sits on top of the brainstem. It controls all our subconscious factors. It works on us in subconscious ways, so much so that there's a company called Archetypes Unlimited, and there's a gentleman by the name of Cloture Rappel, and he's hired by Fortune 500 companies to talk to their sales reps and their people in their advertising divisions, and he tells them about the construct of the reptilian brain and how to finesse and fine-tune advertisements so they produce an element of fear and an element of power, all these different things that would appeal to us, to our reptilian brains, so we're more apt to buy their products. This part of ourselves is something that is there. We can't escape it. And the elite of the world have taken the symbol of the dragon and all these wonderful scaled feathered serpent symbols and stuff and adorn themselves into it, feeling a sense of power. It's not a matter of they are owing to or part of some dangerous elite group that's over there to eat your babies.
Now, tell me, John, these reports, though, of reptilians in closets of kids and stuff, you think that's real, or is that a figment of somebody's imagination?
Well, it could be one or the other. I mean, we know that children often have ideas of things that are under the bed or in the closet that aren't there. But it doesn't mean that there's one or two children that don't actually have something appear out of a closet. But we as parents, we don't seem to think that's a threat, so we don't get alarmed by it when a child says that something's appearing out of their closet. And it's just like the Men in Black. Whenever the Men in Black appear or disappear, they don't really do it in front of anybody. They do it around the corner. And then there's a flash of blue light or something, but they never see them actually disappear and leave.
You mentioned Adam and Eve, and that the reptilians were seen there, that they may have been construed as the devil.
Well, the thing is that, remember, in the Bible, it said that everything in the garden was good. It didn't say except for the snake. The snake was good too, okay? However, evil entered its heart, and it can enter anybody's heart at any time. And that's why the ancients had, like, Michael fighting the dragon. It's a matter of Michael saying, I'm going to control that reptilian part of myself so I can live a good life and not be one that can easily fall into rage and hatred and anger and warfare. That's a different thing. And so all of us have this ability to say, I'd just really like to wring that guy's neck, but we don't. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist there. And this is the whole thing. It's a matter of, can you control your subconscious and not let your subconscious control you? And it's been one of these philosophical questions for a long time.
John, we keep hearing stories of underground bases. Are these that belonging to us or the reptoids?
Oh, I believe that we have underground bases, and I believe that if there is another species visiting Earth from a long distance, they would set up shop here in some way, just like the famous Star Trek episode where everybody's in an observation booth watching a village comings and goings, and all of a sudden they're revealed, glass becomes transparent, and they're revealed standing there watching everybody. I believe that kind of observation is being done. I don't feel that anything's going to travel here such great distances just to turn around and spend a couple hours and then travel back. So some of these bases might be here. We have our own bases that are run, that our governments have had, governments of the world have had. Most of World War I and World War II, unbeknownst to us, especially World War II, they don't talk about the underground warfare that occurred during World War II, but there was quite a bit of it. So we have a lot of military-industrial complexes under there. The continuity of government program initially set up with FEMA in mind as its major agency that's in control of the continuity of government. This was discovered in newspapers in the 1980s back in Florida. They found out that 3/4 of FEMA employees had top-secret clearances. And when pressed for why was it that 3/4 of them had top secret clearances, it was discovered that the majority of the money and the efforts of FEMA were to prepare the United States for Armageddon. Those kind of bases are in our own country, in Russia's, and throughout Sweden. They have the most advanced, beautiful underground complexes that their own population bases uses for trains and tunnel work and stuff like that. So. All of these bases are all around the world. There's far more of them than you can possibly imagine. Places like Area 51, it's not what's on the surface that counts, it's what's underground. Aircraft have been seen to actually fly through a hatch and disappear through the hatchway, and the hatchway close. And this might kind of give us the reason why so many Navy pilots were involved at first up at 51. They were hitting probably cable arresters. And this is what we've done to prevent our runways from being shut down, because an enemy just has to cluster bomb your runway and it shuts an entire Air Force base down. But if you're taking off through a protected covering, this is where we should be militarily, and we are already, and we have been there for many decades. So extraterrestrial bases, U.S. bases, pharmaceuticals, backup industries for U.S. continuity of government means all and or the above. But sadly, we don't really have too many civil defense areas where we can run in case things get bad. I guess we just are the human cover.
Are there any reports that these reptoids snatch humans and take them down underground?
A lot of people who have had the encounters, most of the encounters happen and they have a sense of missing time, so they don't know where they were taken. It's hard to determine when you're in some sort of a half-awakened state whether you're actually underground or inside a craft. I think that Travis Walton even maybe had that kind of a difficulty telling when he was abducted, and because the walls of the craft seemed at times to be organic. And so it's difficult to determine where they are taken. But I know that they tend to want to lift up individuals that have Rh-negative blood types, which are a very small population percentage of people on the planet. And so these people, their DNA might go back to the Basque regions between France and Spain, and they may be part of a group that had been experimented on in very, very early times, and therefore their descendants are carrying the same genetic code information that needs to be recorded in their bodies for other aliens and stuff to pick them up.
John, of those that are abducted, how many believe they're abducted by ETs when it could be these reptoids?
Well, that's the whole thing, isn't it? I mean, we just don't know. I mean, if a being told you, "Oh, I come from this star out here," are they necessarily even telling us the truth? We see that all of them have the capability of landing anytime they want. Okay, but there seems to be some authority or treaties in place that prevent that from happening. So if they were to tell us where they're from, is it necessarily believable? What we can do is we can say, well, the being looked like an octopus, so we can deduce by its physical likeness that it probably lives in an aquatic environment. So we can deduce where these beings are from based on what their physical attributes might be and what their adaptations have been, because it's stressed on through the ecology. It's stressed on their DNA that things have got to change. It's no different than living on a swamp area, and then 3 generations, 4 generations down the line, your children start getting more and more webbing between their feet because it's actually easier to walk around in a wet environment if you have this webbing. These are the kind of adaptations that happen over time. Even though you're separate species, you can adapt in some way similarly to other species. And this is why, like the woolly mammoth adapted to the cold by getting hair, but it's still the African element, but it had hair to keep it warm, and its ears were small to reduce heat loss. But these were adaptations for the environment they're in. So if they're from off-world, not all our environments are going to be the same. So we can kind of get into a rough idea. But with the reptilian image, there's just too much science weighted in favor of it above anything else. What we need to do is change the verbiage that we use with our authorities. Instead of keep talking about extraterrestrials, we need to start demanding answers about beings who are non-human, just regardless of their origins, and nail that question down so we don't let smart attorneys try to evade the answers by saying there is no extraterrestrial threat, but yet we're not talking about extraterrestrials all the time. We've got to stop having them narrow our language and preventing us from furthering the pursuit of truth.
Technologically speaking, John, how advanced are they?
Like Hitchens said, fingerprints of the gods. I mean, I would imagine that, based on Moore's law of progress doubling and such, that even if they're 1,000 years ahead of us, you can only imagine what they've come up with. We have a lot of problems on our planet. It would be nice if one of them could just drop down and solve all our issues, but we've got to solve these issues ourselves. We are now at a time of change like no other change in human history. This is a changed world. It's been decided that it was going to be a changed world. 2020 was a target year that has been etched in the pyramids. And we are undergoing change right now that is absolutely unbelievable. And I think that we can only just sit back and relax and enjoy the show because it's all a show. Everything's fine. It's all a show. And we just got to come out the backside of it. And I think we're going to do that quite well. It would be nice to top it off by having extraterrestrial contact so we can change the conversation for once and for all. Instead of politics and corruption, we can talk about opportunity and innovation and new business contacts and a way to economically grow the world, not just the nation.
Would you say, John, that your expertise, your specialty, is investigating these reptoids?
Well, that's what I'm known for because I pioneered the work and introduced it. I enjoy working the cattle mutations. Sheriff Kuka, who you had on the radio at one time with me, he said to me at one time, John, I hate to say this, but, you told me there would be an abduction on this day, and exactly a year later there was a cattle mutilation. He said that a year later there was a cattle mutilation on that exact day you told me there would be. It's hard to imagine that you could be so close to being accurate in your work that without being a part of the crime. He says, and I'm just telling you that because, I'm a sheriff. I have to say it. But the point being is that it taught me how important drawing lines out and alignments were, because that's what they're doing with the cows. They're placing on the alignments, trying to point to ecological disasters. I'm into the alignment thing. Just recently on my Facebook account, I posted an image because I went to the Great Pyramid of Giza. I took a line, I drew it exactly along the 333.33 degrees azimuth, true north, and it landed right on Los Angeles. And beyond that, it landed to the north of Catalina Island. Now, I think that if there were previous super civilizations on our planet, that if given the importance of the pyramid, they may have traveled along azimuths using the pyramid as a center point, and that would certainly explain some of the underwater USOs that have seen, the underwater submerged craft that have been seen, and UFO activity in the Catalina region, and the interest in Los Angeles. Warren G. Shufeld, who was a mining engineer in the 1930s, thought that he was told by the Hopis that there was an underground city under Los Angeles that were occupied by a group of what they call the lizard people.
John, do you find this subject is well asked for at conferences and events?
As always, it's one of the highlight type of topics at a lot of conferences, because there's a lot of hooey going on out there as far as saying what the reptilians are all about. And a lot of people are past a lot of the fear that was attached to the subject matter, and now they just want some more clarity. And it's coming, and the support is coming. Just recently, I know that two gentlemen over at Harvard University by the name of Tim Lomas and Brendan Case, they got together with the Montana Technological University professor Michael Masters, and they presented basically everything we've been telling them, and you've been helping for 30 years, by the way, George, helping put the word out about the possibility that what we perceive as aliens may be terrestrially evolved reptilian life forms. And this has gained a lot of national attention. It got a lot of press coverage. So the public is waking up to it. There's more and more scientific weight being added to the subject matter. I think that it is really an earmark, and it tells us that we should perhaps get ready. Personally, I believe it is the one galvanizing type of physical image to pull out of a saucer, to see something with scales and reptilian slit eyes. You can only imagine the shock and awe that would encompass the earth and bring about a new age.
Here from Southern California is an abduction victim. Now, I'm not sure it's fair to call her a victim. She is Pamela, and we'll call her only Pamela, abduction victim. I heard a gurgle. Was that you, Pamela?
Yes, it was.
You gurgled.
I should have told you to call me an experiencer instead.
An experiencer?
Yes.
You wouldn't describe yourself, Pamela, as a victim?
Absolutely not.
No. When did your experience begin? How at what sort of early age were you first?
Well, my first conscious contact is about 5 years ago, and it was just recently after I had had my first conscious contact, and it was the first time that I had ever heard of scoop marks. And I realized that I had 2 marks on the front of my leg since I was a child. And I literally couldn't believe that, because at the time when I had found them, when I was young, there was no scar. It was just all of a sudden there were 2 holes in the front of my leg. They're about the size of a watch battery, and they're about 1.5 inches apart from one another. And I remember... Now, was there any abduction experience that you recall to go along with this? Or not that I recall.
No, so the scoop marks came out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere when I was young. And, of course, when you're young, you go, what's that? You know, I don't remember...
Well, not that young. I mean, this is 5 years ago, right?
No. 5 years ago is when I had my first conscious contact.
Okay, now that makes sense. All right, so the scoop marks were at about what age?
I was around 8 or 9.
8 or 9.
Mm-hmm. And I remember them showing up at different times. And I'm starting to make some connections. I lost a job actually from going public about 6 months ago, and from going public with my experiences.
What kind of going public?
I don't mind saying that I've done your radio show before, but Strange Universe has been replaying the segment, and they were hardly generous. They took sound bites out of context, as they're known to do. But that's not a problem, because I took the 6 months off, and I actually finished the proposal to a book that I'm writing. And
so you got canned for what you said.
Oh yeah, and I'm not the only one.
That is so unfair, Pamela.
It's almost a new little form of prejudice that we have on our hands.
It is a new form of prejudice.
Yeah, you become aware of something that's so incredibly profound, and you want to share it with the world because you feel that it's important, and you literally have to keep your mouth shut with both hands in almost everything you do in your life, and it's very challenging because I really believe it's something that. I think disclosure is imminent, and that we can't really get this information out fast enough to prepare ourselves.
Your relationship was with a reptilian creature.
Right, but the daughters that
lizard.
I saw were half gray and half human. Now, I had gray experiences for about 2 years before I had a reptilian experience.
There is an ongoing relationship between human Earth women and reptilian beings.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I understand that it's probably the ultimate insult for men. And I remember men being very upset by the things I said. And unfortunately, people don't have access to my first interview, so they just call me completely ridiculous.
Oh, well, I know. They need to hear the story, and they're going to. But what I'm saying to everybody is, up on my website now is a picture of your reptilian friend.
Right. Now, and I can tell you that it's not exact because I only described it for a quick 15 minutes to Kasara, but it's very close. There are some differences, and I hope to have a better drawing in my book. So just
you're writing
that
a book?
Doesn't look like that's not a picture, you know. It's like, no, it's not a picture. I didn't have my camera, okay?
Okay.
And no cameras work on an interdimensional level. Sorry.
In other words, you wouldn't have taken a picture of him anyway.
No.
What was his name?
Well, I didn't really give the entity a name. I didn't hear a name. In fact, one of the things I'd really like to talk about was this regression, because I found it a very profound revelation for me. I did this regression with Barbara Lamb, and it was a 3-hour regression. It was pretty phenomenal because you never know when you're going in what's going to come out yourself, because your defenses are down. You're tapping into an unconscious realm that you don't have access to when you're conscious. And I had the experience of being a reptilian hundreds of thousands of years ago. Well, it's very possible that I was meeting myself or an aspect of me or someone that I knew from that time. I firmly believe in past lives. And I think it's very possible that we have been all of these species at one time or another, or at least a good number of them. And since metaphysics has taught me that there is no past, present, or future, we have access to these particular realities that we might have been a part of.
Can I ask a couple of questions about the photograph?
Sure.
Okay. It kind of looks like this reptilian guy is wearing a T-shirt.
Yeah, it's more of a breastplate.
A breastplate?
Type thing. And like I say...
And then you can almost like see what looks like lungs or something.
Well, it's very human. And like I say, to the touch, it was very soft. It wasn't scaly. It was...
Yeah, but in the photograph, it shows definite green scales.
Yes. Well, like I say, the entity that I saw, and who knows how much is screened, who knows what these entities really look like. Maybe all the grays are really reptilians.
But I would presume that when you described for the person who did this, very good drawing, it's very good drawing, you know, it almost looks like a cobblestone road. I mean, the skin looks like a cobblestone road, you know, with indentations in between the scales. Now,
right. It reminded me of the entity reminded me of a tattooed being, totally tattooed with a snake type. Did
you feel the individual scales?
No, I didn't.
So you're saying the whole thing felt smooth?
Well, have you ever held a snake?
Yeah, when I was real young.
All right. Well, snakes' bodies are very soft.
Garden snake.
But they're very firm.
Yeah.
And that's the closest thing I can tell you that it felt like. You know, men are visually oriented, so for men, this sort of thing would be completely out of the question.
Yeah.
Women, if you appeal to us on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, generally it doesn't really matter, you know, what the package is. We seem to move from a different place.
Yeah, but there's packages and packages, and this is not even remotely human.
Well, you would be very surprised how many letters I got from women who would long for something like this.
The creature has a mouth.
It's actually more alligator-ish. You know what? I was in a pet shop, believe it or not, and I saw the bearded dragon, and all of them were at the side of the cage opening their mouths to me, and I jumped back because it was almost like a memory of some kind. No, well, I was just shocked because it was a reminder. It was a trigger. The trigger effect, let's say.
Trigger effect, thank you.
Really triggered something in me, and like I say, it's called a bearded dragon, and it's a reptile, a small little reptile. You know, like I say, I have to do another drawing because the mouth was very, very different than that, but it was very human-like. I mean, you know, almost imagine a human being more so than a reptile.
You know, you said there was telepathic communication, and you said there was a deep emotional involvement. Now,
absolutely. The being said he knew me. I don't even think a courtship type thing or a thought in that direction is even important because, like I say, I felt a connection as though we were connected maybe for eons, you know.
Boy, I'll tell you, if human guys only had that ability to impart that feeling to human women, there wouldn't be near the trouble on this planet we have now.
Well, you know, I think that people that we do meet, we have resonated with and had experiences with. We're just not aware of them. Instead
of some stupid line like, you know, what sign are you or something, it's an immediate mental communication, and boom, there you are.
Yeah. Well, I think it really just comes down to respect because, you know, as many of your guests have said, there really are no secrets anymore, and we communicate with each other on a telepathic level anyway, and it's just a matter of how tuned in you are to yourself and to other beings. I mean, we're all so divine and so multidimensional that if we could only see that about one another and ourselves.
So then it really wouldn't be wrong to say then that it was telepathic love at first sight.
Yeah, we could say that. Like I say, I believe that I was meeting an aspect of myself. I think I was being reminded because in my regression, one of the things that she asked me was why I had such a connection with this particular race, and I saw myself on a hill with my fellow warriors. I was a male reptilian in this life, and we were basically, we knew that the end was near. We didn't know exactly what it was. We didn't have, you know, weapons. Our minds were our weapons. We were preparing ourselves mentally for our doom. And I remember looking at the other beings, and there was such a sense of love and knowing that we were going to perish. And a red cloud, I don't know if it was radiation or what, came over, and that was when I came out of the regression. But she asked me why I would be in touch with the reptilians in this lifetime. You're going to love this. Okay. The answer was that the same thing is going to happen here on this planet. There is an end in sight. Maybe it's a precognitive, prophetic vision that I have, but that many of those warriors from that time that went through that are reincarnated now to experience it once again.
All right. Well, you could almost look at him, based on the story you just told, and imagine them as reptilian barbarians.
Well, you could, except that in that life, they were very evolved. They were spiritual warriors.
Well, spiritual barbarians.
They were mental giants.
But they were also warriors, right? In other words, the Mars influence, for example, they take what they want, right?
Well, this again is something we have to remember. We cannot blanket statement any extraterrestrial species because we can't blanket statement human beings. There are good ones, there are bad ones, and then when you take it out into the universe, into the cosmic realm, we're talking about from the past, from the future, evolved, unevolved.
But still you're talking about a warrior species, basically.
Well, that's what people say, but you have to understand that not everyone has that particular perception of it. I mean, there are as many varied stories as you can possibly imagine.
All right. How aggressive was your reptilian?
Well, it was very aggressive, and I believe that I was in a lot of fear because it was so shocking to me visually. But once there was a telepathic communication, I started to calm down. And I said to myself, you know, I've been through a year and a half of gray abductions that were so shattering to me physically that this, obviously, I'm not going to die. That's the conclusion I came to from going through so many abduction experiences.
I'm looking at this guy, and I wouldn't conclude I wouldn't die if I had tangled with him.
Well, the thing is, like I say, I didn't get that sort of telepathic communication from the Greys.
No.
It was cold. It was clinical.
And so that was really more frightening than this.
Absolutely.
Because at least here you were getting some sort of mental, emotional connection.
Exactly. And I was having severe physical symptoms from some of the procedural stuff that was going on with the Greys.
Would this creature come to you in your sleep, in your bed?
Well,
would this creature take you up somewhere?
This is what is very hard to explain, because I think I mentioned on the show long ago that I'm a skilled astral projector. I've been doing it for 14 years, and I've been traveling out into those weird realms and had a lot of strange things happen. But I always knew that I was out of my body and that I could not be harmed physically.
Right.
Now, this time, and I also am a lucid dreamer. Maybe the Greys are reptilians or can shapeshift into...
Oh, my God, then it's possible... No. Then you have to imagine it's possible that women who are meeting men all over the planet actually are meeting shapeshifters.
You never know, Art. At least I think I know that the military has been cloning for a very, very long time.
I don't doubt that at all.
And I will tell you another incident, which I wasn't going to share because it all sounds so outlandish that even I sit back and I go, how am I ever going to even tell my abduction support group about this? And but I sing on the weekends. I'm a singer, and I had a gig in Pacific Palisades about 7 or 8 months ago, and it was an Asian wedding. And it was couples. Everyone was down in the yard. It was like a 3-tiered backyard. And the band was set up at the top and with the bar, and all the guests were downstairs having dinner. Dinner had started, right?
Okay.
2 guys walk in, dressed in black with sunglasses on, after the sun went down.
Men in black.
I couldn't believe my eyes. I said, this couldn't possibly be real. And luckily, I had just seen the film, Men in Black, so I had a bit of a sense of humor about it. And my sound man came over to me and he said, Diva, well, that's my nickname. He said, Diva, look at those 2 guys over there, because he had heard your show and he knew what I was going through and knows me well. And he said, I swear to you, those are Men in Black. And I said, listen, JC, the minute I get off a stage, I want you to come with me and we're going to confront them, because they're either gay lovers at the wrong party or they're Men in Black. So as soon as I got off stage, they were gone. And I said, look, I know that they were here. I said, let's go look for them. They must be in the house, because they're obviously not down eating. We would have seen them go by. We went out. I finally said, listen, let's ask the valets. We went to the valets, and the valets said, yeah, we saw these 2 weird guys. We thought maybe they were bodyguards, but there's no stars here.
Boy.
And I said, well, I think I know who they were. I said, what were they driving? And he said, a black Lexus. And I said, well, it ain't a Cadillac, but, I mean, these are weird things.
This is a horrid thing to contemplate, Pamela, but has it occurred to you that those men, obviously onto you, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously.
Obviously onto you, that these men may have snooped, peeped, recorded your encounter with Mr. Reptile here?
Well, I tell you, Art, the research that I've been doing has been pretty heavy since I first became aware of this, and I know that many people that have had military abductions right after going public, and I've had a couple experiences that are actually almost too scary to talk about, and I know that it happens. I have a couple theories about it. I've been researching mind control and have found out some pretty startling things about, you know, the disposal program for the mind control victims who are implanted with extraterrestrial abduction experiences to cover covert operations they might have been involved in. And so many records are destroyed once they're disposed of. I mean, it's very possible that on one hand, they're muddying the waters of research for abduction because they've already set the ridicule campaign for abduction in action. That was a planned scheme on their part to discredit all of us. Finally, we get to the other side of these experiences, understand them, become aware and process them, and become functional again in our lives. And I'll tell you, at the end of all this, there's only one species that really, truly scares me, and that's the one that I belong to. You introduce a new species.
That's right.
And once again, all the new prejudices are out, rearing their ugly heads.
Pamela, Earth women are supposed to be for Earth men.
Well, you know
that's
what?
That's where the problem is.
I don't think any of us are necessarily Earth beings. I think we are throughout eternity coming into new forms and new consciousnesses, and this is the expansion that I've become aware of just in terms of being a paranormal explorer my whole life. And I think that's probably one of the reasons that I woke up to these experiences.
Right. In the middle of the first relationship you had with the lizard,
right,
he morphed himself.
Right.
At first he was a handsome human.
Right.
He became what we see here, roughly.
Right.
Now, why do you think that the lizard guy would think that you could handle that? Particularly at a sensitive moment like that.
Well, the thing is, I had two other interactions with the reptilians after that. The first time was the only time that I was introduced to a human-like being before he shapeshifted. The other times he just showed up as
the question is why he revealed himself to you at that moment, why he thought you could mentally handle that.
I'm not sure. I really don't know for sure, except possibly, like I say, I go back to my regression, where I was to be reminded of my connection to that species and the fact that I need that mental warriorship to do what I'm going to do the rest of my life. Because I've walked into a life that I'm now really compelled to share this information and get some answers
I know.
for myself and everyone else.
You would describe this creature as dominant.
Yeah, or aggressive, let's say.
Synonyms, I think. Dominant, aggressive.
Okay, well, I'm pretty dominant and aggressive as well. In fact, I noticed that the minute I became a participant and I became aggressive myself, the entity disappeared.
What?
Yeah.
You mean you even scared him away?
I don't know that I necessarily scared him. I think that the job had been done, and that was to basically bring me through fear and into an empowered position.
Oh, that's really weird. That's like staring down a bear in the forest.
Yeah, I've met many beasts face to face, and I think that I'm a more powerful person for it. And if the reason that we're here on this planet is to overcome fear, because it is such a synthetic thing, it's man-made. It's not our natural state to be in fear.
You've got to understand, though, Pamela, that it's doubly hard, and I really mean this, it's doubly hard for the average man to understand that any Earth woman would prefer or even allow a totally different creature.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty bizarre. And like I say, I think it's just a matter of getting over, once again, a prejudice.
Now, I remember the last program we did, a lot of the women called. A lot of women called. And they were really okay with this.
Well, I think
the guys who called were not.
Well, I think women are basically more intuitive, and I don't think I will get an argument from anyone on that. And I think that they sense something about me that is real, maybe that empowers them, that gives them just a little bit of an insight into something that is unknown, that they're not afraid to venture into and at least explore and talk about.
When Barbara regressed you, Is that when she found out about the things that you said were just too scary to talk about?
No, those were experiences that I had after going public.
All right, after going public. That means after my last program?
Yeah, and Strange Universe and the whole nine.
So, in other words, anything that I would pry out of you now about these two things would be utterly new.
Oh, yeah. But like I say, I don't want to disclose everything because I'm also writing a book, and my co-author's in Hong Kong, and I didn't have a chance to call him and say, what could I talk about?
Believe me when I tell you that anything that you would say now...
No, it'll be between you and I, right?
No. No, we're on the radio. I'm being upfront with you here. You know you are.
No.
Anything that you would say now would just promote the book, because... obviously, in the book, you would get all of the complete lurid details.
Well, you know, there's a chapter devoted to you and all the people that wrote to me.
There's a chapter devoted to me?
Oh, yes. It's called For Whom the Bell Tolls.
You're kidding.
No. Well, you know, I really do have to thank you, because one of the reasons that I've been offered to do a lot of other magazines and radio shows and TV shows, and you know what? I've learned my lesson. If I am edited in any way whatsoever, I'm not doing it.
I know. I don't blame you for a second. I am very sensitive about who I will do an interview with, because, you know, they come after me, Pamela. You've got to understand.
I know.
You know, even with some of the absolute righteous work that I do, I have a lot of people who hate my guts because of the kind of material that I air.
Sure. Well, and the thing is, we've got to have an allowance policy here if we're going to get any new answers in life, and it's real sad, really.
Well, look, just give us a little tease about these items that have occurred, things that have occurred to you since the last time we spoke.
All right, well, all right, I'm going to share a couple of things. I've met a couple of women who went public years ago when it wasn't quite as safe to do so. I mean, you have to understand, I believe that the UFO cover-up is probably one of the most profound cover-ups that we will ever face. And I know why, because the ramifications of disclosure are so huge. We're talking religious, economic, political, you name it, everything's going to crumble. So as far as our shadow government, because I don't even think our government is aware of what's really going on, but as far as they're concerned, they have to do anything in their power to keep this quiet. And there have been a couple of women that I know, one in particular, and I'm not going to use any names because I don't want to divulge who they are, because I know that this one woman has been absolutely terrorized by the military. In fact, over a dozen of her neighbors have witnessed her being abducted by the military and interrogated. And I just want you to know that it's really going on. Abducted by the military and interrogated about an experience she had? That's right, because we're not supposed to be going public with this. You have no idea the harassment that abductees have faced. Oh, yes, I do. And the same kind of experience you had? Well, mine was similar. I really don't want to talk about it. I woke up one morning and I was completely aware that I had been interrogated. You too? By the military? But I only had sketchy memories of it. I was extremely drugged when I woke up. I had, my whole face was swollen. My front tooth was chipped. Oh, my God. They beat you. Huh? They beat you. I don't know. All I know is I felt like someone had beaten me up. I didn't think that I even left my apartment. I have no idea. But so they probably got every detail. They probably got it all. Well, I don't know. I imagine they must be curious to know either whether I'm a mind control victim, which I'm pretty sure I'm not. I mean, I didn't. You've got to admit, you wouldn't know. I mean, I think I would. The thing is, I believe that it's all of the above. I don't think we can, put all these things into a nice, neat little box. Maybe not, but Pamela, it's impossible to believe for most people that you could have a physical relationship with this creature without being the victim of some kind of mind control. I know. Well, that's what the mind control people say. But I can't believe that that is the case. I really believe it's all of the above.
As a matter of fact, a man out there, even me, might choose to believe that the reason you said you prefer the lizard guy to human guys is because of mind control.
Well, the thing is, extraterrestrials, I'm sure, have as much power as the government to mind control. I mean, let's get real here. The mind control program has been ongoing since World War II. Over 800 German scientists were brought here after the war and filtered into the mind control program. And our
Ultra.
tax dollars are paying for this.
MK Ultra.
That's one of 147, Art, that we don't know about.
147 programs?
Yeah, that's what we know about.
Good Lord.
I mean, my mind control research has really scared me. And, of course, I talk about it on the phone. I know my phone's tapped.
Well, once you know it, who cares?
Yeah, well, the thing is, the things I talk about, and my co-author, we do interviews on the phone, and, you know, I'm very verbal. I'm not holding anything back. And that's another reason why I would appeal to your audience to listen to these accounts that people are bringing forward, because we're sharing something with you that is really to our detriment to do so.
But that's right. But yours is the wildest of them all.
Well, you know what? But I'm not the only one. I'm just the only one that will talk about it. I got letters from the Bible Belt from women who said, I can't thank you enough for coming forward.
I know. I remember on the last program we had women crying on the air. Thank God you came forward.
They say they're down there in the Bible Belt in a Christian community, and if they told their husband about their experience, they would be afraid that they would be divorced and exiled from the community.
Of course.
And I happen to not answer to anybody. Thank you.
So you don't have a husband to worry about divorcing you and casting you off?
No.
So I can understand why then you would come forward. But even at that, it must have been a really difficult thing.
I'm dealing with, employment stuff and friends and the men that I've dated in the last couple years.
Do you tell them about it?
Well, I feel like I have to. It's part of my life. And they have a very hard time, and they don't stick around very long. You know?
They just up and leave?
And that's okay.
It's not really.
Well, but the point is, I need somebody as strong and truthful and centered and allowing as I am.
Do you watch their faces when you tell them?
Well, it's just, I realize, and I'm not having a hard time with it. I don't feel rejected. I understand how difficult this might be to walk into. I mean, I'm not a passive woman without a mind.
Most guys could accept a woman with a history. No problem. A human history. But...
Well, I'm going to need a pretty incredible man. That's okay.
Have you yet met an Earth man comfortable with this?
Well, oddly enough, I saw a video, because I scour for videos and whatever I can find on the topic, and I saw a guy who I believe is going to be in Linda Moulton Howe's book. His name is Jim Sparks, and I think he's from Florida. And on his tape, he said he had one interaction with the reptilians. Now, he's had a lot of great experiences.
Wait a minute. He had?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you mean guys are having interactions with lizard ladies?
Art, yes. I can't tell you how many people have had this experience. Credible, empowered people.
You didn't tell us this the last time.
No, well, I didn't know that Jim Sparks was having, interactions. But what he did was he asked these beings, he had 12 beings around him, and he said, I want to know. He's very bold. I can't wait to meet him. I hope to meet him one day. He said, I want to see what you really look like, who you really are. And all of a sudden, they all shape-shifted into reptilians. And he's going to be in Linda's book.
Art, ask Pamela, was there a presentation of alien flowers, alien chocolates, or, most importantly, alien alcoholic beverages during the courtship?
Only absolutely fresh insects. That was such a funny ad that guy wrote. I really want to hear that again one day.
Absolutely.
There's one thing I would like to talk about.
Okay.
And that is the wonderful people that contacted me afterwards, after your last show. In fact, I think I remember telling you that I was about to press a CD, and I asked for donations of $1.
I remember that. Yeah.
Well, I only got $200, but I got hundreds of more letters, and I wasn't able to press a CD. But I took some of my own money when I lost the last job, and it was about the time of the Roswell 50th anniversary.
Boy, bad timing.
So I pressed. No, it was great because I got to go. I went, and I had pressed up a couple cassette copies, and I sent one to the concert director at Roswell.
Should have sent one to me.
What?
Should have sent one to me.
You know what? I'm going to send you one because I now have them for sale out of my purse. These cassettes. And the people that sent me $1, I have kept the money and the letters. I've written to most people back, but I haven't been able to get to everyone. And I just want to thank everyone. And the people, I have an address now because I'm actually selling them on a couple other radio stations.
Whoa.
And for people to write to me as well, because I want to include some accounts in my book. Anyone who wants to share anything, even anonymously.
It sounds like all the details, the lurid details, are going to be in the book.
Oh, yes, and then some.
Figures, yeah.
Yeah, well, hopefully I'll get it out without too many more military abductions.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, one of the reasons I'm even talking about this stuff is because if anything does happen, maybe a few people will ask questions, because I'm not going to off myself. I'm not going to have a heart attack. I do yoga and, bounce on my trampoline. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be an accident.
You know the creature on Star Trek that is reptilian-like?
Yes, I do.
What's
As a matter
his
of fact, I told you I have a new job over at... Yeah.
No, don't give that out. Listen to me. What is his name?
I saw the mask today. I want to say Torque, but I don't think that's...
It's not Torque. It's like Gorf or...
oh, God, I can't believe I don't know.
But, actually on Star Trek, several times they have shown how he courts a female of his own species, and it's one really rough love affair.
Well, some people like it rough.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's funny, I met the makeup artist, the one who does the aliens, and I'll tell you, Gene Roddenberry was tuned in, as they say. And
had to be, because look how long ago that was.
Yeah, he was an incredible man. As a matter of fact, I sang for his last 5 birthday parties.
You're kidding.
No, my band played, well, not my band. I was working with an agent at the time. But that man was so incredible. He introduced himself to every member of the band and sat there in front of us, applauded for the jazz solos. It was amazing.
All right. Look, there's a lot of people who want to talk to you, of course, so let's see what we've got on the lines. You just never know.
This is true.
First-time caller line, you're on the air with Pamela.
Is that me?
That's you.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, this is Marie in Sunnyvale. Pamela, I've been listening to the show. I did not hear your original interview with Art Bell.
Yeah, we're on a whole lot more stations now, so a lot of people would not have heard that first interview.
Okay. Well, I'm with KSFO, so I think it's been on for a while. But at any rate, I heard what you said about it being a tantric experience. And I have a question for you. Was there more than one experience with your reptilian lover in the tantric way? And did your energetic experience of him, since you don't have a name for him, did your energetic experience of him draw him towards you when you would think of him energetically?
I have felt his presence many, many times. And as a matter of fact, it's interesting because Barbara Lamb shared with me, and this was afterwards, and I'm sure she won't mind me telling you that.
Barbara's the one who regressed her.
Yeah, this woman is so incredible.
Mm-hmm.
She is a shining beacon in this field of research.
So what did she say?
She actually, in a conscious state, met a reptilian that came into her living room and shook her hand and disappeared. Now, this is a woman who's very well respected. She's credentialed.
This is the full extent of that relationship, though, is a handshake.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, what she do?
All right, now you're not answering the caller's question, Pamela.
Pardon?
You're not answering the caller's question.
The question was that I had 2 other experiences, I think I mentioned, with the reptilian, and it was extremely sensual, organic, but, yes, it was aggressive. But that's the only thing I can describe it as.
Organic, sensual, and aggressive.
So I have a question beyond that then. You mentioned earlier in your conversation with Art Bell this evening that when you became aggressive, the entity disappeared.
Scared him away.
So, all right.
And remember, it's our prejudice that has demonized the very presence of reptilians. We've done it throughout history.
Interesting you should say demon on part of the born-agains. I've got to ask you, because they will. I guarantee someone on one of these lines is going to come at you like this. Do you
they're
realize...
the ones that I got the most threats from.
Yeah, I'm sure. Do you realize that you had sex with a demon?
Well, that's what I got a lot. And again, I believe that, it's a prejudice because I don't believe in the devil or in Satan. I think Satanists are just bad Catholics, And, I believe in the good and the evil in men's hearts.
All right, this is a J-Cord test. Wildcard line, you're on the air with Pamela. Hello.
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 Oh, wow, this is me, huh?
Only you know that for sure, maybe your hairdresser.
This is unreal.
Where are you?
I'm in Tennessee. This is Jim. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yes, Jim.
I'm also a first-time caller.
Yes, sir.
This is a very interesting
yes, it is.
Subject. I don't even know where to start asking questions.
I didn't either. It just sort of rolls on. I mean, you must have something.
Well, she says that she feels like it was a spiritual connection.
Yep.
That she had this...
yeah, but all women say that.
Yeah, that's true.
All women want that.
They all want that.
That's right.
And that's how he was able to connect with her mentally, because they do all want that.
Right.
And I feel like that's why she was able to be comfortable like she was with the situation.
You know what I wonder? I wonder if this spiritual connection was not like it is here on Earth many times, one-sided as a wonderful emotional experience, whether or not the green guy.
Absolutely. Well, the thing is, we can never experience how much someone loves us. All we can experience is how much we really love ourselves. And that's all we can project, is how much we love ourselves. We can only have our own experience of love. We can have it have something reflected back to us, but it's like a big circle. It goes to them, but back to us, but it's still coming from us.
There you are, caller.
There's a lot of people having these same encounters, and I'm glad that she come out of the closet with it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You said that when you look at his mouth, that you would compare it to like a crocodile mouth.
Well,
right?
More crocodile than human, but still.
All right, what about the tongue?
I really am not aware of a tongue.
But lizards
have
tongues.
Yeah, I guess so, but
forked. I believe big forked tongues.
We did not kiss.
No kissing.
The only thing that the entity did was he did lean down by my neck, and that's the only.
Did he chew on your neck or give you a reptilian hickey?
No, it was simply that he was in that area.
All right. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Pamela. Hello.
Yes, I have a question after. I just want to say our small town, we had in our small local newspaper, a lady who said that she saw a reptilian creature enter her house, and he was more or less just observing.
In South Carolina?
Yes, sir. It wasn't. I've never heard. I turned into the radio station tonight and heard this, and I hadn't heard anything about it, since. I hadn't heard anything about it anywhere else. So I thought it was just,
Oh, no, look, we're used to this. We opened the lines. The last time we did it a year ago, we got the same kind of thing. Pamela, there's another reptilian sighting for you.
I know. Well, and that's why it's really important for someone to be talking about this, because I know the answers are out there. If we're all brave enough to come forward and talk about it, maybe we can piece it together.
I think it's important to even ask Pamela, how many women are involved with reptilians, or for that matter, how many men involved with reptilian females?
Well, that's why I'm out here, because I got letters from both men and women.
Hundreds of letters?
I got hundreds of letters.
That's really frightening.
Yeah.
I mean, that is...
Not to mention the emails I got. I mean, they are so stunning. I had to do a chapter. I could do a whole book on what happened after your show.
Yeah.
I could probably do a sequel with what's going to happen after this show.
Probably. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Pamela. Hello.
Me?
You?
Oh, yes. Yes, this is Bart from Utah.
Yes, sir.
Also a first-time caller. I'm glad to finally get through. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, this is also a test for all my Utah affiliates.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, please continue. I'm a verbal advocate for your show. It's not very well known here, actually. So, but anyway. I'm just finding it very hard to believe. I'm not really. I shouldn't finding the state of sexism and whatnot today.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, quite honestly, it's really not that hard for me to understand. Listening to her story and where she's at, she spent obviously a lot of time reflecting on whether it be mystical things or whatnot. And I just myself returned from a year traveling abroad, India and Asia, and for somebody that's actually doing enough soul searching reflection, she's made some good comments. I've heard her talk about reflecting.
But this is not like an Indian or Asian girl, sir.
Well, no, and I'm not assuming that. But
if you go up there and have you seen the photograph of?
No, I haven't.
Well, you've got to visualize.
It's a rendering.
I'm sorry.
Visualizing it. Yeah, I think you may have made a allure to Worf of Star Trek.
No, I don't even know.
Worf. He's right.
I just don't watch TV anymore. I've got the real thing,
It's Worf.
And another comment, actually, I'm completely heterosexual and quite active at that. But I recently had a girlfriend that was quite aggressive and liked to bite, and she referred to it as Klingon sex.
Klingon sex? That's what I was after.
She must be another reptilian queen.
Yeah.
It's Worf. It's Worf.
I'm going to ask her what she thinks.
Well, Robert Morningsky thinks that the reptilian queens from Lemuria are back.
Oh, okay.
In this incarnation.
So before you really speak up, sir, you would have to see him and then translate in your mind to a female version of him.
Well, I was in my mind, and then the image itself, I think, is not important because I agree with. I don't think that's the point. I think most men are missing the point. That they have this completely sexual, tactile, visual image.
Thank you.
And they're really locked in a very, very
that's me.
Dominant perspective of sex and relationship.
I admit it.
That it's based on completely like physical pleasure. And I don't
in other words, you understand all of this. But see,
there are some evolved men out there that have actually done some work on themselves, and I'm thrilled.
The large, the large eyes and the very small mouth, and not like your guy at all.
Well, I saw the Greys as well, and I can tell you that video looks very real to me. I haven't seen the whole video. I just saw the snips. In fact, I would love a copy of that. I'll make you a trade. I'll bring you a CD for a copy of that.
Of the Alien 51.
I'd love to see that.
Area 51B. All right. I think we can work something out.
Cool. Now, listen, you owe me for making me divulge.
If all of us on Earth could see that as a universe we're all one, then we'd all be much better off. Unfortunately, with the simple prejudices we have here, we can expect humans to accept. How can we expect humans to accept any other species? That's from Wendy. It's from Wendy.
It's true, isn't it? Well, I always say that, planet Earth is kind of like the rednecks of the galaxy. We just we're like bad children that are getting out of the playpen, And I think that's probably why we've seen so much extraterrestrial intervention over the past 50 years, because we are literally getting out of the cosmic playpen, and it won't be tolerated. We're going to the bathroom in our backyard, and I had a meeting over here, and a girlfriend was here.
Yeah.
She showed up early, and she said, "What is that sound?" And I said, "It's outside my bedroom window. Come and take a look."
And there it was.
Yeah, one of those big ones with the double numbers just hovering.
You're kidding.
Oh, no. And I've had...
Could you see anybody in the cockpit?
I've had nights when I had headaches so badly. Just at the drop of a hat, I would get one, and I couldn't sleep all night.
We'll see you on our next edition. Until then, be safe, everyone.